Welcome everybody to the debut of Salon Sangria, the Gothic Funk Press reading series. And that was King Porter bringing us in, the King Porter Stomp, by Jelly Roll Morton. It seemed appropriate for this evening. And just a quick introduction. I'm grateful to everybody for coming and joining us over YouTube. Gothic Funk started as a social club of Michigan expats and their friends living in Chicago way back in 2004. By 2007, it coalesced into the Gothic Funk Nation Arts Collective, which established the National Address and Tuesday Funk Reading Series, the Paramanu Pentaquark Arts Journal, and finally, the Gothic Funk Press. Today, Gothic Funk Press is an independent publisher based in Flint, Michigan. It has been involved in such projects as the Flint Area Scavenger Hunt, the Flint Order of Orpheus, and we have worked with local partners such as the Flint Public Library, the Flint Festival of Writers, and University of Michigan Flint for the Teen Writers Workshop and other activities. This autumn, the Gothic Funk Press will publish A Girl Who Was His House, a full-length collection by Canadian poet Sarah Jean Cron. Salon Sangria will be our curated reading series based here in Flint, Michigan, although we are using an online format during this time of COVID. Before we start, I also want to thank the Gothic Funk staff, including Sam Perkins-Harbin, Skylar Moran, and Amy Sarkowski. I want to thank my wife, Jessica Coyne, who is providing both tech support and moderation tonight. I want to thank the Tuesday Funk Reading Series in Chicago and the Guerrilla Lit Reading Series in New York City for providing us with both inspiration and guidance on how to host a reading series via Zoom. And of course, I would like to thank all of you who tuned in tonight to hear the work of these brilliant artists living in our midst. The idea for Salon Sangria was born several years ago when I invited a group of friends over to my house one night for drinks and storytelling. I've always wanted to revisit that feeling of gently tipsy camaraderie and vulnerability, and there's no time like the present. So in a moment, I will introduce our guest bartender who will lead you through the process of making a refreshing libation to enjoy during the reading. And if you don't know if this applies, feel free to grab a beer or a Coke or a glass of water or anything else you like. After that, you will be meeting our 3 readers, and the entire event will last about an hour. All right, so Irene Hodis, your proud virtual mixologist, has been many things. This current incarnation sees her as the director of 2 film festivals and cultural events at the Sonoma County, California Jewish Community Center. She spent over 10 years in the wine industry, making, selling, and educating people about wine, as well as working in winery management. In the core of her being, she is a writer, artist, comedian, cook, traveler, wordsmith, and crossword puzzle enthusiast. During the pandemic, she writes and edits a daily film and culture newsletter and is creating a virtual international film festival and drinks a lot of very fancy wine, craft beer, and artisanal spirits. It's just what we do in Sonoma County.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? I'm just going to get started then. My name is Irene, as Connor said, and I am here to show you through making a sangria. And why are we making a sangria? Because one, it's wonderful to have alcohol, any sort of libation during a salon. Yes, it's the namesake, Salon Sangria, and it's also summer, and it is a refreshing, beautiful beverage, and so easy to make, and 1,000 recipes that you could certainly invent as well. And I feel odd telling you about sangria because it's basically fruit and wine and, I don't know, sweetness and anything else you want to throw in. But a couple of facts maybe you didn't know. Sangria comes from Spain. Sangria comes from the word sangre for blood. I mean, it is traditionally made with red wine, but sangria isn't drunk that often in Spain anymore. Sangria is traditional, but they like to drink something called tinto verano, which is red wine of the summer wine. It is also delicious, refreshing, and so much easier than sangria. So if you don't have the patience for sangria, but you kind of want to taste for sangria, it's 1 part red wine and 1 part lemon lime soda. So if you got some Sprite in the fridge and some red wine, go ahead and throw that over ice, and you're drinking what the real Spanish people are drinking today. But on with sangria. Sangria is a punch, a wine punch. And there's a long history of wine punch. Essentially, we're talking about spice wines, flavored wines, wines with stuff in it, going back many thousands of years. The Romans did this. The nobility throughout Europe, throughout the Middle Ages, would put spice, all sorts of different spices, thousands of spices into their wine and fruit. And why? Why is this? One, it's to show off. I mean, spices are expensive. You got to get them from Asia somehow. And two, wine went bad, like really, really bad. I think even the best wine that the kings were drinking were probably worse than the wines that we drink today. It's because you can make wine once a year. They're in barrels, they're in bottles, they leak. I mean, no electricity, no nothing, not much science. And so if you had a wine that was slightly off or going, you want to perk that thing back up. You don't want to waste it. So you're going to throw stuff in it to spice it up, to make it taste better. You know, mulled wine comes from this, Wassail in Germany, you know, and all the way down to Spain, you know, the warmer countries. And poorer people would also have put in fruit because they didn't have spices, because they too needed to spice their wine up. It was very commonly drunk, alcohol being safer than water. So let's get started. Oh, and one final note, sangria wasn't well known in the States. It came to us in 1964 due to the World's Fair in New York. The Spanish Pavilion brought their signature cocktail, and it took off like wildfire. Coincidentally, also when Americans learned about the Belgian waffle. There's plenty of wonderful documentaries about that. 1964, World's Fair, look it up. Now, on to the sangria. There are 2 recipes online that I provided in advance, and I'm gonna be doing the second one, or a variation on it, which is a white wine sangria. Maybe I should call it a plasma sangria. That's kind of weird. But in any case, it's white, not red. In theory, I could have made this last night or a few hours ago to marinate. The best sangrias are marinated. That said, I don't have patience. If I want a sangria right now, dang it, I'm gonna make myself a sangria right now. So we're gonna start off with our citrus fruit. I have thinly sliced lemon and lime. By the way, I'm doing a half recipe because I'm single. So I'm just going to do half a bottle of wine. So this is half a lemon, half a lime. I'm going to put it into my pitcher. And I'm going to muddle this with 1/8 of a cup, or you would be doing 1/4 of a cup of simple syrup. Now, simple syrup is my sweet element. You could use sugar or honey or agave or anything like that. But the fact is, it's better to use a liquid than a solid because it dissolves better. So I'm muddling this with my little bar tool. Just want to mix it, make sure that the sugar has completely just sort of infused the citrus. That's good. And now I am going to, simple syrup, 1 part sugar, 1 part water on the stove, a minute. Don't let it bubble. You're done. So easy. This is brandy. I'm putting in about 1/8 of a cup. No, I'm putting in more like almost 1/2 a cup. The brandy I'm using is Corbel. Corbel is a local winery here. They make a lot of beautiful sparkling wine, but I like their brandy. So that, you know, of course, we can have far more alcoholic libation here, because more is more in this case. More fruit, more booze, why not? It's sweet. Okay, and now I'm gonna add the other fruit elements. So the recipe called for a green apple. Here's my improvisation. I don't have a green apple. I do, however, have green grapes. They're also sour. They also have good skin on them. And I'm in Sonoma County, so these came right off a vine in my friend's backyard. So I'm gonna use these. And I cut some up in halves so that we can get the juice out of them a bit better. And it also called for a nectarine or a peach. I have plums, also from my friend's backyard. So I'm gonna put in thinly sliced plums. And I did have strawberries, so I've got sliced strawberries. And we're going to stir this all up. Remember, ideally, it would be great for all the flavors to infuse overnight or for a few hours. Connor was so diligent, far more than I, and he made this a few hours ago or this morning or last night, I don't know, but he showed me his picture and it is Amazing. It's a thing of beauty because then when you eat the fruit, it's all soaked up with all of the beautiful brandy and all the wine. Amazing. So do this for about 30, 45 seconds, something like that. We're gonna move on. Oh, another thing is that a lot of sangria recipes call for juice. They call for a flavored brandy. They call for orange juice. Now, I'm not a big fan of orange juice, and this recipe doesn't really call for a lot of juice, but because I didn't have apple and I did have a bit of apple juice, which I like, I'm gonna put in a tiny eighth of a cup of apple juice because why not? Because I'm improvising and I had it at home and I haven't been drinking it. Next step, almost last step, is white wine. I've got a Sauvignon Blanc. And the reason I'm using a Sauvignon Blanc is that it's not heavy, it's not oaked, it's not got a lot of flavor in and of itself. And this is an old bottle. It's a 2014. Nobody should carry white wine that long. If you've got anything older than a year or two in Sauvignon Blanc, drink it now or make sangria. There you go. How about that? Wow, that's a thing of beauty, isn't it? All right, let's do this. I want to drink it as soon as I can. So I'm going to pour this. I've got a glass with ice set over here. Now, a lot of people will put the ice in it, and that might be great, for a party, but this way you're not diluting it. If you want to put this in the fridge and like drink it real cold on its own, super strong, fabulous. But this way you can control the amount of ice that's going to melt into it. And so I'm pouring it in here. I have also garnished it with some mint, like so. And I have frozen berries right here. These are raspberries that I put out. So I'm going to do that. A lot of recipes call for like orange slices. So I'm going to do that. And before I drink this and say cheers to our amazing writers that are coming up. Oh, you can, if you want to make it a bit spritzy, put in some sparkling water. So I'm going to do that. It's like real fast, cheap champagne, right? We've already got the brandy in there. And last but not least, I have been gifted so many of these. Ever got one of these? These are novelty ice trays. Not why novelty? These things are so useful. What I did is this morning, I made a sangria, very much like this one, and I put it in the blender, and then I poured it in here. So these are slushy. And a couple of things that you can do with this. First of all, you got sangria in your freezer all year round because individual ice. And I put the rest in a regular ice tray because there was so much. I literally made only 2 cups and look at how much I have. You can drop these into some soda water or some Sprite, something like that. Why not? It gets a little bit of booze. You get a little bit of fluff in there instead of using ice cubes. Oh my goodness. You can put this into wine, or you can take these ice cubes and blend them. So I've got some ice right here, and goodness knows I probably talked my time. But these have a lot of strawberry in them, so I'm going to garnish this with basil. Strawberry and basil, wonderful together. I'm going to attempt to get one of these out so you can see it. These are stars. It's not going to happen. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to drink it with soda water. And so I'm going to have a light wine spritzer. Let's just call it that. And with that, I'm so ready to hear all of the beautiful writing coming. Cheers to everybody. And thank you to Connor and to Gothic Funk and everybody, and success. L'chaim, cheers. Wow.
All right. And I got this recipe in advance, so I got to try it earlier, and I'm going to be swimming in this stuff until it's all gone. So now we're ready to move on to the writing. Our first guest reader tonight will be Bob Campbell. Bob is a writer based in Flint, Michigan. His creative nonfiction and essays have appeared in Belt Magazine, Forge Literary Magazine, and Gravel Magazine. He is a contributor to Belt Publishing's Midwest Architecture Journey, published in October 2019. Bob was a staff writer for the Flint Journal, the Lexington Herald Leader, and the Detroit Free Press. He was also an electrician at AC Sparkplug, formerly a division of General Motors, before moving into journalism. His debut novel, Motown Man, will be published by Urban Farmhouse Press in August 2020. Please welcome Bob Campbell.
Thanks, Connor. Thank you for pulling together this event. I'm really happy to be a part of this inaugural reading series. So I guess without further ado, I'll go ahead and get to my piece. So the title of my novel is Motown Man, and it's a love story about a couple looking to build a life together in a faded factory town with veiled racial tension, marked by uncertainty, as well as on the edge of losing its identity. And it's set in the last decade of the 20th century, the early part of the last decade. So with that, I'll jump right in. Keep in mind, I hold no hard feelings toward happiness. I trust that it feels the same toward me, not that it really matters. It just doesn't work as a union. We're too different, at least at this stage in our existence. The strange and perhaps beautiful thing about happiness is it doesn't require some kind of ceremony or legal action to join with it. It's as easy as declaring, I'm happy. Never mind if it's usually accompanied by or attached to some contrived reasons. It's still an identity that's as easy to don as slipping on a coat. You know these folks you meet who talk about finding God in religion, and then reinterpret the word as often as necessary to conform to their worldview, no matter how twisted? That's happiness for you. And it's just as easy to remove or disassociate yourself from it. The lack of relationship with happiness leaves me open to experience life differently. Oh, sure, I still have needs and desires that I wish to fulfill, and having done so would give me some satisfaction, temporary or longer. But what it wouldn't do is make me beholden to happiness. Why am I here, he asked. It's a question he had heard in some variation time and again, something he'd even asked himself more than once. He furrowed his brow and his eyes went searching for some version of the truth. Rays of bright afternoon light stabbing through the parted vertical blinds warmed the noiseless room. The sun's warmth belied the temperature outside. A fierce cold wind had swept down out of Canada and laid bare his true feelings about this so-called winter wonderland. It sucks. He turned inward, sighed, and tried to re-engage. Section break. Bradley had another stop to make before home. With his gas needle pressed to E, he was running on fumes, as they say. There were at least a few gallons in the tank, more than enough to complete his run of errands. Still, he could already hear Abby's subtle objection. Why do you drive around on E so much? He pulled into the gas station up the road away from his subdivision in Grand Heights, parked at the pump island nearest the road, and got out. Snow fell heavily, and he squinted amid the swirl of large flakes. A trail of footprints in the fresh layer of snow followed him across the pavement as he strode toward the building. The stop had only within the last few years morphed into a self-serve fuel plaza from the more intimate full service station it had been, to better serve an influx of more people like him. A young man exited the building as Bradley approached the entrance. A quick chin-up head nod that slyway brothers silently communicate fellowship was offered before the strangers looked past one another. The young man made haste through the snowfall to a nearby idling car, a tricked-out maroon Toyota Supra, and vanished behind its smoky windows. Bradley noticed in an instant the curb appeal of such an automobile, even though it was by then several model years old. Nimble, sleek, stealthy, and un-American, cars like that weren't simply a threat, they were the enemy. The people who would dare drive one in this town were traitors, fucking traitors, especially those who collected a weekly check from the major employer here. And how could one dare bite the hand that nourished it? It was beyond comprehension. Bradley scrapped those ideas, though. He had worked in the shop long enough to know now that the occasional auto worker who had opted for a Japanese or possibly a German car embodied something else other than simply being a fucking traitor. What exactly? He settled for freedom. They were driven by different ideas and inclinations, individuals, some of whom felt misplaced in this life. To Bradley, they were Yobs, named for that Martian baby mistakenly delivered to the Earthling couple after a cosmic collision sent the two newborns to the wrong planets in that old Merry Melodies cartoon. These people were certain it was in their DNA to do something else other than sitting at an assembly line for 8 hours a day, 5, maybe 6 days a week, 7, or if the plants were really humping, making a wad of cash, doing mindless tasks. So to quell the frustration and longing to accomplish in this life what they were truly meant for, the Yobs drove Toyotas, Nissans, or the occasional Beamer here and there. It was their way out of here, not unlike that Martian baby in that homemade spaceship of his. And they didn't give a rat's ass about what their union comrades or company men thought of them. It was, the pursuit of happiness. It's what made this country great, right? And their choice of automobile was an individual declaration of independence. For these people were now cosmopolitan, professional, and above all, unbeaten in their stylish, well-engineered foreign cars instead of looking like an overpaid shop rat behind the wheel of a lackluster Buick. Bradley trudged on across the whitened asphalt to make his way inside to pay for a fill-up. Monday, them that's got shall have. Bradley had awakened hours earlier than usual, his mind churning through endless hours of twilight sleep like a factory through the night, monotonous, slow, repetitive, chained to a machine doing the same thing over and over again. Yet he stayed put, finding comfort with the thought that sleep would come rescue him quietly from this fitful existence. However, it wasn't to be. A restful night eluded his grasp like a feather in a breeze created by his flails, and Abby wasn't there to calm his impetuousness. She was 1,500 miles away, leaving him the lone ruler of a suddenly vast queen-size bed. After lingering in the bed's warmth for longer than what might be considered prudent, he got up and placed both feet on the cold floor. He made quick work of the morning routine and was out the door for the work without delay. Bradley couldn't remember the last time it had been so cold in mid-autumn. But the radio announcer ruefully filled in the missing pieces, stating that it was the coldest November 4th recorded in 4 decades, more than a lifetime ago for a man his age. The country was fresh off victory in World War II, the last November 4th, when the Mercury lapsed into such territory. The city, robust, vital, and cocky with its vast arsenal of wealth. A rising working class city on the hill it was, a place where people clamored to be. As he approached the factory, Bradley saw billowy clouds of white smoke and steam bunching up in the sky above the miasmic amber glow that enveloped the parking lot. The smokestack emissions were always fullest on the frostiest mornings, he noticed. Is that a cloud maker? He had asked once, nestled between Mama on his right and Daddy on his left, on the bench seat of Daddy's black Chevy Impala. His childish question so many years earlier hung in the air like an audible thought. It sure is. Her response, tinged with mirth and motherly affection, Mama knew. She smiled and looked ahead as they drove on in peace. The boy, meanwhile, continued to study that belching smokestack, oblivious to Daddy's soft snigger. His conclusion was perfectly logical, a dope Bradley would tell Abby years later. If the city's enormous factories could produce the great machines of warfare and automobiles to take us damn near anywhere we wanted to go, he argued, why not clouds too? He knew better now. The magical, fanciful world filled with easy explanations passed away long ago. So too had the city's reputation, no longer a lethal weapon in democracy's great arsenal. The town had become a blighted laughingstock. Buick City, a place where the American dream was crumbling and rusting away. A city so far removed from its glorious and arrogant past when it made America go places. Those days seemed almost mythical. Okay, can someone tell me how the original inhabitants of North America got here? His high school history teacher a decade or so earlier tossed him a softball from the previously assigned chapter. In a Buick, the answer blurted from the back of the room. That day was buoyant and confident. Bradley laughed right along with the rest of his classmates that day. His teacher, a short, balding man with a chip on his shoulder, even cracked a wry smile at Marcus's smart-ass reply. The shops were humping in those days, and a clown like Marcus had no worries because his future was assured. After graduation, he'd follow in the footsteps of so many others and enroll in UCLA, the University of Chevrolet Line Assembly, a euphemism for the city's auto plants. Yes, he would enroll in UCLA and maybe play a little softball, basketball, or bowl in a rec league after work. However, when Marcus reached the head of the line, good old reliable UCLA had all but stopped admitting students like him, as jobs in the auto industry here faded away. And even though his classmates' answer that day in school still cracked him up years later, Bradley eventually had plenty to worry about, partly because of all those foreign cars that had taken the place of Daddy's Impala, partly because of the infiltration of automation to help the local factories compete, partly because Marcus had never really given serious thought to doing anything else except biding his time by keeping his classmates amused. And the last he had heard of his old class clown, the answer had become all too familiar in this town. Man, these days, his brother James had told him, that brother's doing his comedy on the crack house circuit. For here and now, in 1991, his once muscular hometown was emaciating before his eyes like an old industrial giant on the pipe. And the sight of those creeping factory emissions that Bradley once imagined to be new clouds fresh off the assembly line made him shiver. A cold jolt of reality that winter was fast approaching. But who's to question Mother Nature's prerogatives, he thought, before muttering under his breath, should have worn a hat. And I'll stop there. That's a section break.
Thank you, Bob, so much. And I'm very excited to have a copy of your book just the moment it's off the press. So our next reader, Sarah Jean Cron, is the co-founder of Stick and has acted as managing editor since its inception in 2012. She is passionate about feminist writing, especially that which flagrantly breaks the norm in terms of both content and form. In her own writing, she explores the experimental and comments always on the political. Her poetry collection, A Girl Who Was His House, will be published in September 2020 by Gothic Funk Press. Sarah Jean works in post-secondary education in Alberta, Canada, and there is a website which you can find on the page for this event, and you should go there to learn more about Sarah Jean's work. So please welcome Sarah Jean.
Thanks, Connor. Sorry about the delay. The impersonal is poclitical. Let's get the name calling out of the way first. The Virgin Queen, independent, feminist, clitorati, female utility. Imagine trying to explain to someone what it feels like to sneeze or yawn, or to hear the screams of someone having her head hacked off. With the help of a razor or a knife, many girls die throughout their whole lives. It is not the book that cuts the clitoris, but its interpretations aid and abet the mutilation. Clitoris not a must. Thank God, apparently the long tyranny of the clitoris is coming to its end, dearest. If you ask me, if you want sex as a mechanical act, you want to put on a clitoris. For a while there, we were moving toward a period of ubiquitous cyborg phrenology. Oh, honey, I feel your frustration. My clitoris couldn't find herself if she ate, prayed, loved. The manual. A dense 200 plus pages of instruction with some clear line drawings to illustrate. Origins and erogenous zones. Your eyes, their pleasure. Doctor's orders. You will find yourself thinking, so that's where they come from. This book is now available for the first time on DVD and Blu-ray. bigger, longer, and uncut. Runaway beaver cut off at pass, man fractures arms. Not winning when it comes to detached lower lips? Dual-use items such as the labia minora majora can be used to manufacture arms for military catch and release tactics. Cotton swabs, rubber gloves, and scopes of various sizes. Please note, clitoridectomy requires the removal of the entire region. However, if you enjoy it, you are going to heck out of the bush and back to the American cities. The next patient will require general anesthesia and a fishhook. Imagine the woman's quiet desperation as get-off ishals perforate the fibrous capsule and project into the spaces noise. Then, on the floor of a dusty closet, they stitch both sides of the organ back together, just as God's intended. Clitoris, widely known before man's discovery, still is often omitted on anatomical diagrams given students, such as female neonates with nothing better to do. So, X-site. Warning, clitoral simulation may proliferate gen-exic earth defects. A clitoris, causatively stolen, then excise. Choice between thousands of nervous endings means old wives' tales about to be published. Concealed. The conflict has left many internally displaced. Visible. She taught me to use this vibrator in carjackings. Biopunk. Cultural relativism fails to justify my pleasure. I should be kissed, cultish, and kissed often, kittenesque. Ring the doorbell and wait for me to open the door. A species of meat art? I am an exorcism. Sex. Weird shit. Women's passionate love affairs with the clitoris outrage the blades of razors or knives. Vandalism, or love maps of psychiatric women on the brink of disorderly conduct. However, when I finally got the point, my lover only lived up to parental standards until he proved he was totally unpointed. Love maps, lover naps over so quickly? My dad does not allow us to learn geography with such considerable frankness as Something Queer is Going On by Elizabeth Levy. I adore the Twinigmas of Jill and Gwen, have to tell you all about them. Something smooth and fulfilling ill. And then, queer is when a boy gets his period. The end? No. Queer is you thinking the girl's on top. The. Queer is I am her boy. End. But then, something strange is going on in the very next title. No longer queer, but still friends, antiques, breakables, to be looked at. Okay, never touched. Ouch. Mulligan, hooligan, Euligan, and Hurligan in the backseat of the van again, getting driven to babysitter's ed. The rest of us make awkward intercourse while moms leer to the rearview mirror. Later, my other, she ejaculates with laughter when I say ejaculate in a manner of speaking. I try to turn it off when we're in the trailer bed bouncing down dirt roads, one axle. But the vandalism of the empty house clinched it. You'd never meet the rigid criteria for membership in the Babysitters Club. And I was barely allowed to baby sit. Queerly, strangely enough, I remember sitting on the floor of my closet while I listened to mother's gossip about you. You're casual and do it. Yourself a shiny ace. The answer to family values. Safety from deviant behavior. I was going to hell when I went to church with you. Still, friends. Because you shared my love of mysteries, and the purity of our relationship, elation, remained locked, even while my favorite game was Runaways. It's weird that I met you in church instead of her. I wrote my language arts provincial all about you. The gooey mess began when you yelled through the phone at my father, "We're murdering her with a pickaxe, oh my God!" But the leering figure in the doorway wasn't you. Perhaps he exploded because you took his name in vain? Never would I get to explore your foul mouth. He drove me, the point, home. You, partner of every god and goddess, drove under a bus and came out the other side. Grades too low, apt to skip class, pulled out of school for maybe a miraculously pregnant woman lover. She 3. I ran into Donna and her girlfriend the other day. She's acting like you're her boyfriend, Mom said pointedly. Then they made me break up with you. Among friends, or the regulation of ribbon colors surrounds consent with resentment, and an unexpected trip to a super fun location promotes unnecessary treatment. I've been having chest pains. Fortunately, those who choose to wear it can afford access to a physician. Capable of little intelligible dialogue, he instead pulls out the pink rose of my delicate feminine affectation. Your main tertiary sexual characteristics have likely rented sequins or stripes on your princess party favor combs. Philanthropy's assistant with a half and half hitch exposes a slight swelling. Do your impossibly undermined eye candies accept the mission to pinpoint pink playgrounds? Ha ha ha, tuck, in a messy hand. Now, emotional support. All different shapes and sizes, in whole or in part, can pass promptly to wrist, paired with urgent need. Apparently a doorknob had embedded in my poor, neglected tits. I will never forget the empowered folks, laughing together, revealing their scars, like grace at a funeral. Sisters, friends, neighbors, they were talking without limitation. So much activity around here lately. Her life is split. She looks nothing like you. Is it that obvious? Fortunately, my chosen mom's easy on and off repartees better outcomes than my not a mouse inertia. Her cultured satin floods the room with global trust. Hygiene decrees I forgo regular garments for more appropriate facilities. She compliments my slip-on frock with its crisp plastic weave. My cheeky grin, I'm sure the men enjoy this cheerful singlet scarlet suit. The women opine, actually, the men are steered toward blue. From then on, I maintained a polite distance. Quietly and demurely sit back against the blank book sheet. Prevention is in progress. This grand tea time has lost all its charm. Sticky Stain's jacket, my tender French rabbits, ballooned over by tacky teepee. But bingo, a frustrating lack of faults found in my adorable productions. However, if we don't run a more radical report, your physician will hang me in public. Corral my thoughts with breathless gulps. I'm sorry, but I can't indulge. A crucial move. Now please don't fuss. Wince even more. No, please. I don't want efforts to block, splayed index, middle fingers. I'm going to squeeze her, distract her hands. They turn on her and count. Surprise hit on a butt-eye breast, a giant pair of scissors. In medical terms, a huge success. The control to eradicate dread. But I've been having chest pains. Lack of range of motion, reluctance or inability to ask. Due to the radiation? No, there's no cross clip in my crests. But I've been having chest pains because assaults persist. Such unbidden services combat eloquence with sleep. I witnessed the continuing revelation poster on the ceiling as I screamed. The plausibility of benefit through abuse questions the validity of consent. I've been having chest pains. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Sarah Jean. And I have to say this, that A Girl Who Was His House will be the first poetry book that Gothic Funk Press will be publishing. And we weren't really planning on publishing a poetry book or really any book this year, but Sarah Jean sent us the manuscript and it was all as amazing as this reading. And we kind of thought, well, we've got to seize the moment. So, so I'm very excited and encourage all of you to pick up a copy of A Girl Who Was His House when it comes out this autumn. So for our third and final reader tonight, a very old friend of mine, Reinhard Suarez is a Chicago-born, Minneapolis-based writer, editor, and raconteur. He is an MFA in fiction writing from the New School in New York City. Among other things, he enjoys a good slice of deep dish. Lou Malnati's is manna from on high. That is true. A night of quality karaoke and eking out thoroughly undeserved victories at Friday Night Magic, The Gathering events. His written works include the young adult novels Lords of Badassery and The Green Ray of the Sun, and countless capsule book reviews for the American Library Association's book list. He lives with his wife, Kristen, their daughter Morgan, and their feline overlord, Carl. Please welcome Reinhard Suarez.
Hello. Well, I first wanted to thank my fellow readers and Connor for setting this up. This has really been a just cool experience, cool event. So I am going to read actually from my first book, which came out last October, called Lords of Badassery. And it's a young adult novel about a young man, a teenager, who, through a quirk of fate, he chances upon a video game that does not exist or should not exist. And he kind of dives down the rabbit hole, he follows a trail, and he discovers that he is excuse me. He discovers that he's on the precipice of like this amazing internet discovery. So I'm just going to read the short excerpt from the tail end of the book. This is when he's stumbled upon this great video game tournament, and he is at this video game or this great convention, sort of like the San Diego Comic-Con. And he finds himself alone after all the journeys, have culminated. And he's kind of having this crisis of conscience, crisis of confidence. And that's when he discovers or comes across the exact person, the one person in the universe that can help him. And I have to tell anyone who's watching who is from the UK, I am going to do you a favor by not doing the accent for a specific character in the scene. I'm just going to do it straight because I'm going to mangle that accent. So here you go. Okay. After dropping off our luggage back in my room, I wandered around the hotel in a fugue state, somewhere between sleepwalking and drug-induced amnesia, like Ace Harding in Deja Vu, which is a great point-and-tap detective noir on the Nintendo Entertainment System, by the way. Oh, I still knew that I was Leroy Jupiter Jenkins. Oh, by the way, his name is Leroy Jenkins, unfortunately. And that through a quirk of fate, I'd found myself on the precipice of internet fame and more probably infamy. But was that accurate? Did I really know anything? Surely not some things, like what the hell was I supposed to do with myself? I was all alone. Eventually, I found myself walking next to the indoor pool, which was, like every other part of the hotel, jam packed with people. I didn't know what I was there for, what exactly I was looking for until I found it. In an alcove next to the bathrooms was a bank of vending machines, your classic chip and candy deal, your pop machine, and something more enticing, a machine that spit out ice cream bars at $2 a pop. Ah, Fat, my old friend. Do you know the Klingon proverb that tells us ice cream is a dish that is best served cold? The answer to that was, of course you do. If it's not cold, then it would just be like disgusting sticky soup, and no one likes that, I said to the ice cream machine. Okay, best to make my purchase and move on. But which one? After scanning my choices, I saw that there were some real classics: Choco Tacos, patriotically colored firecrackers, blue bunny screamers, orange creamsicles, and drumsticks. And down at the very bottom was one kind of ice cream that I'd never seen before called Bubble O Bill. And it was shaped like the head of a 10-gallon cowboy, complete with handlebar mustache and a bullet hole in his hat. The piece de resistance was the source of the name. In the center of his face, Bubble O Bill had a big round nose made out of a green gumball. The choice was made, the money was paid, and I was the proud owner of my very first Bubble O Bill bar. I stepped back from the machine, letting the dude behind me have his turn. The cool touch of ice cream on my tongue made me feel so much better about the world. Sure, I knew that this was a temporary high, my sugar-loving endorphins kicking in and swearing at me for making them wait so long for the good stuff. It wasn't the best ice cream novelty I'd ever had, but something was better than nothing. That's just my luck, eh? I heard someone say behind me. Turning around, I spotted a man in swim trunks with a towel draped around his neck. Immediately, I was struck by a sense of knowing him, though I couldn't quite place the face. He was an older gentleman with a swoop of auburn hair on his head, not unlike John's, which is his stepfather's, but with much more of the red intact. By his accent, I placed the man as English, and if I didn't know any better, I could have sworn that he was. Oh my fuck, he was. You, I said, you're. As soon as I started stammering, he placed his fingers right on my lips. I assure you, I am not who you think I am. Bull fucking shit. The dude was only the biggest walking, talking, dancing, and singing internet meme of all time. Bigger than fucking me even, or even my World of Warcraft namesake. Swap out his swim gear for comically oversized 1980s sunglasses, a black turtleneck, a trench coat, and 2 slick to believe moves, and you have the one, the only. You're still thinking that I'm him, aren't you? He said. Come on, man. You're clearly, fingers on the lips again. Let's suppose that I am this person, which I again assure you I am absolutely not. One would imagine that a performer whose mystique is tied to him appearing when least expected would most likely not want his name announced to possibly tip off bystanders to his presence. So you don't want me to say your name? Except you weren't going to say my name, were you? Then what is your name? My name is George Washington. You clearly made that up. I did not. My mom adored the great statesman who helped defeat the British. She was rubbish at history, he said, rubbing his head in frustration. Look, I was just hoping that there was more Buffalo Bill. It appears you've bought the last one. I glanced down at the ice cream machine, and sure enough, next to the button for the Bubble O Bill was the red light indicating that the supply had run out. Sorry, I said, holding up the bar with a big chunk bitten out of it. Damn, he muttered. Those are pretty rare in these parts, you know. Here, I said, holding it out for him to take. You take it. It won't help me. Not really. Nonsense, he said. We can share. Together, we walked over to a bench next to the indoor pool, frothing with kids doing belly flops, and sat down and took turns taking bites out of Buffalo Bill's strawberry flavored face. My companion draped his towel over his head like a cowl. He'd made the excuse that it kept his head cool, but I think I knew what it was really needed for. I sense that you're troubled, he said, after taking a big chomp of ice cream. Thoughts? I guess I'm tired at failing at everything, at life. I'm sure it's not that bad, he said. Everybody is good at something. Sure, I said. Video games. But so what? Beating a game doesn't make you a smarter person. It doesn't make you a nicer person. It doesn't make you a better person. Your parents won't like you more. Girls won't like you more, that's for damn sure. Well, he began, let's once again imagine that I have intimate knowledge of what it feels like to be the ass end of a good time. It would be reasonable to conjecture that such a person could live through such tribulations and come out okay. But what if okay isn't enough? Like, what if you can't overcome who you are? What if you're a fuck up? He shook my shoulder. If I was indeed a person whose trade relied on me performing in front of people who have real and likely unrealistic expectations, it would stand to reason that I'd sometimes suffer crises of confidence. Am I the man they want me to be? Will they feel that they got fairly compensated for the ticket price? In the end, you won't know. In the end, you don't have control over how others see you. I'm not asking for control, I said. Just a break, you know? Ah, but a break from who? Are all these people beaming their thoughts into your brain? Or are you telling yourself all of these things? Who calls you a failure? I guess it's me mostly. Right. And do you know what I would do in the hypothetical situation that I was a world-renowned singer and musician suddenly plagued with doubts of my self-worth? I'd look into a mirror and I'd tell my reflection that I wasn't ever going to give him up. And by George, there wasn't any chance that I'd ever let him down. And let's not even mention running around or deserting him because they're straight out. Did you just... Yes. Yes, I did. May I have the gumball? Over the course of the conversation, we'd reduced the stalwart countenance of Mr. O'Bill to the late cowboy's nose resting on a sliver of ice cream. I nodded, and Mr. Washington greedily popped the gumball into his mouth. Sir, I asked, call me George. George, are you here for the convention? Convention? This convention. It's called Wrath of Khan. It's why there are a whole bunch of people running around in costumes. He looked at me. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, but the smile on his face told me otherwise. Our mutual connection reduced to a flimsy stick of wood, he got up and thanked me for sharing the last Buffalo Bill. I hope this has helped you a bit, he said. I think it has, I said, but I get the sense that it's up to me to figure this shit out. Indeed, he said. No matter the circumstances, you are always the ultimate master of your own fate. Change your viewpoint, and your reality changes with it. He took a few steps backwards, disappearing into a plume of steam that rose from the hot tub. And remember, you didn't see me. You didn't see George Washington. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you, Reinhardt. And I actually, I just finished reading The Lords of Badassery last week, and I feel compelled to add that it is a great road trip story, significant at a time when practically none of us are able to take road trips. So, so here's what I'm going to do. I am going to switch to gallery view, and I'm going to ask all of our guests to unmute. And do people have I actually have figured out how to see the chat going on the YouTube. So I can see all the comments that people have made. Do people have a couple minutes to stick around in case there are any questions from our faithful audience that is brave, bandwidth, and myriad distractions to see us tonight? All right. So if anybody who is in attendance has a question for our guests, go ahead and type it up. It looks like there's a lag of about 15 seconds, so it might take me a moment to see it, but I'm looking at it right now. And I just also feel I have to add that we've had this whole time between 16 and 19 guests on YouTube. Reinhardt helped me launch the Tuesday Funk reading series for Gothic Funk Nation way back in 2008. And there were many, many months / years when if we got 16 people to turn up to a reading, that was a rip-roaring crowd, wasn't it?
I think the first reading might have had like 4 people, 5 people, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, you learn the art of like counting yourself in like the crowd attendance so it seems slightly less pitiful. But does anybody have any questions? You can ask anybody a question about their process, their publications, their books, where to get them, you know, what they how many drinks of Iren's delicious sangria it takes to get tanked. I'm on my second, so I hope that it's not 2. Anything, well, you know, anything reasonable, I suppose. We'll just hold up for a second in case anybody has any questions. And if not, that's fine. I understand what it is to be awed into silence by brilliance. All right. Well, I don't think I called anybody out by name earlier, but I just wanted to circle back very briefly and specifically thank Marco Rafala from the Gorilla Lit reading series, because there are a lot of people that have taken different stabs at these COVID virtual reading series, some of them more successful, some of them less, and really an embarrassment of like things to watch online right now. But like Marco talked with me in depth about the way that they structured their reading and the obstacles they encountered, and I feel like it went off pretty smoothly tonight and is likely something we will try again, and that has a lot to do with his very valuable feedback. So thank you, Marco, and thank you, everybody. And I do have not a question, but a comment. It is from KC Kent, who is a friend of Sarah Jean's, and he just wanted to thank everybody for coming out and reading. And I've also gotten some very enthusiastic texts from my wife, who has been your YouTube liaison this whole time. So thanks again to everybody for making this grand experiment a success. Thank you to our guest bartender and our guest reader. Do any of you have anything to add before we sign off for the night?
As the non-artistic person of the night, except for the art of food and beverage, I just want to thank the readers. It was really an honor to be included with you 3. It takes a lot of bravery to share your creative product, and I enjoyed it thoroughly as someone I consider myself an audience member to the 3 of your readings. So thank you so much for sharing. And I've been watching simultaneously on YouTube because I think it's fascinating, this technological new world. So thank you, Connor and Jessica, for making this possible. And yeah, Sarah Jean and Reinhardt and Bob, thank you.
Amen. All right. Well, with that, we'll go out strong. Thank you all. Please be safe. Please make yourself plenty of sangria. If you think about being unsafe, make more sangria and drink it till the feeling goes away. And San Dimas High School football rules. All right. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, audience. You were great.